And we are live. What's up, guys? Hope everybody is holding on to their seats. We've been having a very interesting week so far. I've been delivering as many of my friends and guests I can possibly get on to get a scope of what's happening in the situation. And the bottom line and the moral of the story for all my guests and what we're trying to tell you guys out there is don't be one of these schmucks or the ostrich syndrome where you just put your head in the sand and pretend things are going to get better, or you're one of these opposite people who think everything's doom and gloom and the fucking
Right.
world is falling apart. John and I just before this were talking about like our parents, World War II. My parents went through Civil War, World War II. People forget there was a Korean War. All these we're talking about fuck World War II. How many people? 100 million in China, 100 million in Russia,
Right.
30, 40 million people died in World War II. How many people died in what's it called? The Jewish Holocaust? 10 million
Exactly.
people. Like, we're talking about hundreds of millions of human beings. And this wasn't too long ago. This is in the fucking 40s.
Right.
And people
Yeah.
forget,
And
right?
and we're not talking about. I mean, again, not to make light of the situation here, but we're not talking about it's not nice to die of pneumonia, I'm sure, but when we're talking these wars, we're talking about dying in horrible ways, right? Like, I mean, this is the level, like the comparison between what we're experiencing now, even if we did nothing at all, right, compared to what we've been through historically in the last 150 years. This is like such a small event, but we've magnified it to such a huge proportion. This is the biggest event that's happened in the last 100 years, only because of the magnification of it, which is just that's why things are going crazy right now.
It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you and I were just talking about, they just enacted the War Measures Act, both in Canada and United States. So if people aren't familiar with that, that pretty much eliminates all democracy in a country and it gives unlimited power towards the prime minister and president to do whatever they want. They can take away your private property rights. If you have a business like a hotel, they can commandeer that hotel and do anything they want. If you own like a taxi service, they can take that. Anything that can so-called help the state, they can take away from you under the War Measures Act, and you can't really do anything about it. And the crazy thing, for the most part, they take it over forever. It's not like they give it
Yeah.
back to you. And so it's a big deal when I saw that announcement. And obviously those things that we can't really control. I want to be talking about today things that we can control. Having
Yeah.
a stable mind, thinking forward, becoming anti-fragile, as Nassim Taleb talks about. And so, John, what have you been doing lately? Like, what kind of strategies have you been doing? I know, you specialize in real estate. We had an episode before talking about real estate. You have bulldog mindset, talking about how to become anti-fragile, working on your body, working on your health, working on your spirituality, your mentality, and that obviously deviates into finances. But what have you been taking, or what are the necessary steps have you been taking lately to kind of prepare yourself for this? And as well, people always forget, for every negativity, there's a positivity. There's always an upside, an opportunity, in
Exactly.
whether it's a short term, medium term, or long term, to capitalize on certain situations.
So I think real quick before I answer that question, I want to address one more thing that I think is really important, about the gloom and doom type of thing, which I think is my main issue that we're having with this coronavirus thing, which is that we're making a choice right now, like you said, with the war powers, and what we're doing is we're choosing to give up freedom for safety. And
Hmm.
historically, that has always been the worst choice to make. And millions of people have died in order to secure the freedoms that we're giving up now. Again, I'm not trying to make light of a pandemic, but at the same time, if 3% of the world population died, which is unlikely, but if that happened, that would be a fair price to pay for freedom. I think, historically and so it's just amazing how quickly the biggest problem I have right now is just seeing how quickly people are, what I would say, being cowards, and that they are basically willingly giving up all of their personal rights and freedom, for safety or perceived safety, which is just absolutely, that's the thing that more than anything drives me crazy about this whole situation. But yeah, to answer your question, what I'm doing, so as far, it's kind of funny. I actually have really really bad timing. So I was sitting on cash for a while. I was sitting on about $650,000 cash in my bank accounts for accumulating them to try to buy a real estate deal over the last couple of years. And about a month ago, I said, you know what? I probably shouldn't be sitting all this cash on the bank accounts, just getting like small interest. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to put it all into Wealthfront. It's basically a
Yeah.
robo
Wealth front,
trading, right?
yeah.
Diversified. I looked at like for the last 10 years or however long, I did low risk, like five on the scale, just like diversified, put some in stocks, put some in foreign, put some in bonds, right? They do it and they auto balance and everything. So I literally did this a month ago. And then at the same time, I took 550 and I put it into the wealth front, and I took 100,000. I bought Bitcoin at $10,000, right?
Mm.
So so this was a real good test for whether or not I'm a stoic or not, because in the last 2.5 weeks or so, right, I've literally lost, what is it, at least $175,000, probably up to $200,000. But you know what? I'm not sweating it. I'm not going nuts. I'm just carrying on with my normal day. And I'll tell you, like, so some of the things I did, right? So when this first happened, okay, I did what is the smart advice, right? Which is, do not like panic and pull your money out. Okay, wait, things happen. And I did that, and I took a hit, and I kept on taking hits, but I had a bottom threshold. I was like, you know what? When it gets to this certain amount, I'm going to cry uncle, right? Because that advice is good, and maybe in the long term, but we're now hitting an unprecedented level of territory here, where previous advice doesn't work, right? So actually, I liquidated my entire Wealthfront account on Monday, because after the weekend, when I watched the weekend news and I saw MGM is filing for bankruptcy, for reorganization, when I saw airlines are cutting their capacity to 25%, right, and asking for bailouts already, when I saw local businesses are being shut down, I thought, all right, this doesn't look good for the future at all, right? I thought to myself, okay, probably the market is going to be very, very, very bad, and it's going to continue to go down. So I took my losses and I got out of there, and today it's down. I guess it's recovered a little bit, but last I looked, it was down 2,000.
We can pull it up here. The Dow Index.
It got as low as down 2,200, but now it's at down 1,600, so down 7.79%. So that's bad. It's it's below 20,000, and I don't see any reason why it won't continue to go down at this point. So again, I could be wrong. Again, no one
I
can
think it's
totally
going to go down
predict the
to
market.
10,000 points. So people forget, like, you
Mhm.
talk about airlines, you talk about all these corporations. They've been doing buybacks with free money to propagate their stock. I always
Yeah.
tell people, like, it's been insider information. You see all these CEOs of these major corporations about 5 to 6 months ago. They knew exactly what was going on. They all left one
Yeah.
after another, resigned, give me my severance. I'm cashing out my stocks.
Yeah.
And the stock valuations are ridiculous. We're talking about companies who are valued in the market cap's $1 billion, but their EBITDA is like their burn is unreal.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
even profiting $1. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. And this cuts the legs out from underneath all the, because if you're operating, within, a month of of budget, you're done. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
done. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, how many airlines are going to fail? How many businesses? How many small businesses? How many restaurants and bars? Right? And then you look at the downstream impacts of that. No one is safe. Again, I'm not trying to be a fear monger. As far as I'm not afraid of the virus. I'm afraid of what we've done in response. Right? I would have just rather have said, and I said it from the beginning, just let it play out. Like, yeah, I understand that people will die, but like trying to prevent this is going to cause more people to die. Right? When you think about what's going to happen from the economic fallout from this, and how many people are going to, I mean, in third world countries, starve to death. This is the result. I mean, you think people are like, oh, you're being dramatic, John, but I'm like, hey, you know what? When all the factories shut down in China, because who is supplying the who's paying for the US, for those factories to operate? It's U.S. businesses. Those people they're going to die. Like that. Like it's like what else are they going to do? They're going to starve. So again, I'm not trying to be alarmist, but what I'm saying is that there's a lot of bad second order and third order effects that we didn't really anticipate here. You know, even me, right? I've tried to make myself as anti-fragile as possible. I have a bunch of real estate, like last time I talked about real estate, but you know, what's likely to happen, right? I've already kind of faced up to the reality of the situation, which is likely that I have some commercial real estate, right? Those tenants that are in those commercial leases, they're operating retail businesses. If people aren't shopping, they're not making any money, and you know, they could default on those leases. So bam, like something that was super secure could just get wiped out. I have a bunch of residential real estate, right? You know, people aren't, they get fired for their jobs, all these companies, all these layoffs. You think they're going to be able to pay for rent? No. So like anything that you think is secure is not secure under these circumstances. But you know, and even cash in the bank, right? It's like you can move your money out of the market, but if you move it to the, luckily U.S. dollar seems to be rallying just because.
I think you know, going back to the title of the video, what should I buy and all that, I think the only two things I would put my money in them right now is a U.S. dollar and Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, well, the only problem I have with the U.S. dollar right now is even though it's rallying against these other currencies, what is the Fed doing right now? They're printing money.
Trillion. It's $3 trillion in the last 48 hours.
So we won't feel the effects of that now, but the dollar that you're holding right now in your bank account is actually worth a lot less than what you think it is, right? It's even though you're seeing the stock market drop, the dollar's dropping as well. You're just not seeing it drop because what's happening is that when all that inflation is happening, like inflation is like has a long lead cycle to it, right? So we're going to see that happen. And so everyone's like, oh, it's safe to have the dollar. Okay, yeah, it's doing well against the other currencies because, you know, people are trying to buy dollars, but at the same time, like you don't realize that there's all these dollars, these trillions of dollars that have been printed. Like you don't feel that effect until later on. So I would not say that it's even safe, you know, to have there's really nowhere you're going to escape this. I guess that's what I'm saying is, like, unless you were actually shorting the market, right? If you had the foresight to short the market, sure, that's great. And maybe you could even do it now. You know, it's a pretty risky proposition, I think.
You got to look at even the VIX right now. The VIX is almost at 80 points.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like, I don't think this has ever been. I'm looking at the charts right now. It's at like 08, we hit 59, 60. During that crash, we're at 80, man. We're 20% more in the VIX right now. No one can find there's no price discovery right now. No one's trusting. None of them are. The thing is, none of these things, the stocks, and not to mention, people forget we're in an oil war too. That doesn't fucking
right. Yeah, that's
like true. Fuck, right? The one commodity that kind of powers everything. But all these stocks, all these futures, all these derivatives, they're not asset driven. They're just paper.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, all this, and then, you know, yeah. I mean, I could go on and on for all the things, like all the baby boomers that were in retirement that just got their 401ks cut in half. They're screwed. Like all their children are going to have to take care of them now. And like, I mean, we are just, you know, again, when I say it would have been better to let 3% of the world population die, I know it doesn't make me a popular guy, but look at the fucking mess we created. Right, like if we didn't do this, it would, again, not that we individually have control over it, but what we do have control over is this, and this is what I'm telling everyone. You know, I hope that I am wrong and we pull out of this, and we could. I think it's possible. It's possible that certain events could turn around, and maybe after 3 weeks, you know, there's somehow we pull out of this, and airlines, you know, I don't know, whether they get bailed out or whatever circumstance happens.
Boeing needs to go bankrupt and never be born again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think we should bail them out. I think they should disappear. But somehow maybe we come out of this. But what I'm telling everyone and what I'm counting on myself, you know, is 2 years of winter. I'm basically saying, like, the money I pulled out of the market, I'm not investing. I'm not putting that anywhere. I'm holding on to that, and I am assuming that, I mean, you know, I've got income coming from businesses, but you know what? Probably people aren't going to be buying a lot of shit right now that is not essential. And you know, I'm just assuming. I'm saying, okay, worst case scenario. Let's say that the business income drops to 25% of what it normally is. Okay, I have to ride this fucker out for 2 years. Like use the money that I have in order to survive, to live, to make it to 2 years, and then come out. I don't think it'll last more than 2 years. That's, you know, kind of my worst case scenario planning. But I'm already in my mind, and I think what all of us should be doing is to be thinking about how can we survive for 2 years, right? How can we make it so that we don't screw ourselves? You know, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a business, right? Like, just think about, okay, maybe you're going to have to pull money out of your savings and inject it into your business just to survive. You're going to have to cut expenses, like
Or
because
you and I can pretend we're a bank
Mhm.
and get in line and get some of that special 0% interest money they're giving out to everybody. Because, like, I don't know where
Right.
I didn't get the memo, man. I didn't get that fucking
Right.
email. I'm like, where's that special club? How do I get myself 0% interest loans?
Well, and not only that, but they also like reduce the deposit requirements for the
To
bank.
zero.
So what does this mean, right? Again, I don't want to be an alarmist, but I'm going to pull a lot of money out of the ATM in the next couple of days here before everyone does.
They already started
Because
slowing down. 3K. I was reading about there's certain banks in the States. I forget what state it was, but the limit's 3K now.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is absolutely ridiculous. You don't have access to your money, right? I mean,
No.
how
Yeah, your money, man. Fuck.
you think you have rights. You have no rights. We only perceive that we have. When everything's going great, it feels like we have rights. You don't have any rights. You don't, right? I mean, you don't have access to your money. You can have your property taken. You can be forced to never leave your house. I mean, these are the things that, like, this is the reality that we live in. So again, trying not to be too alarmist, but I'm just saying, like, this is some bad stuff can be. So just plan like for 2 years. But there is good news to this, right? Which is, I'd say two things, right? One is that this is going to create opportunity because it is going to kill the weak, right? If you're running a business on bullshit and you don't have good finances and accounting principles, and you don't, you know, and you're not smart enough to like wait this out. Like if you've been running your business on a margin, highly leveraged, and you're done. Like it's too late. You're done. You're going to get wiped out. So there's going to be a lot of competition that gets wiped out, and the smart people that hunker down and survive this and are able to, you know, keep as many of their assets as possible. When we come out of this, you're going to be, a lot of your competition is going to be cleared, right? You know, there's going to be opportunity potentially. You know, again, I'm looking at worst case scenario, right? Maybe we'll pull out of it and it'll be fine, and I hope it does.
We got
right?
this question here from Valentin Daniel. In 2008, the down market was 6 months. Can you give me more details why you think it might be 2 years right now?
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you exactly why I think more. Because in 2008, what was happening, right? We had mostly, it was the housing bubble. So there was a certain sector of the economy that was being destroyed, right? Mostly the banking industry, right? Anything around mortgage lending, housing, construction, all of that. So it was a segment of the economy. What's happening now is that every single faucet of the economy is being destroyed, right? Think about it, like everything from airlines to hotels to restaurants to you know, Uber and Lyft, like those guys are done, right? Like, I mean, think about every single thing. Small mom and pop shops, right? Housing market, of course, it's going to be affected. That'll be the next downstream effect from it. Banks, right? When all these businesses, right? Okay, most of the businesses, when you walk around your neighborhood and you see all these bars and restaurants and stuff, do you think those people own those businesses flat out? They have SBA loans,
Yeah.
okay, or they have loans from banks, and those are going to get defaulted on. So, you know, I mean, this is why, again, I'm saying, like, worst case, I'm planning for worst case scenario. In this case, you know, I'm not planning for a zombie apocalypse where we're going to need to get our guns out and fucking, you know, like that level of craziness. But I'm saying economic worst case scenario. That's what I'm planning for. And that's why this is totally different. This is unprecedented. Like, every single sector is being hit because, you know, they're everything and all these downstream effects. I can't think of one thing except for, like, surgical mask industry, you know, that are the, you know, whatever that is really benefiting from this, and maybe grocery stores in the short term, maybe
some tech companies like remote work software like Slack, Zoom,
yeah,
you know, Notion, HQ, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that it's very, very, very small, and those are not the ones that really count in terms of the overall market, right? It's the core things, right? I mean, think about what the world looks like when there's no airlines, which is a possibility that we're facing. I mean, airlines already, historically have been running on very little margins, right? I mean,
Yeah.
airlines, that industry has always been threatened. This is like, I mean, this is the worst possible thing that could happen to that industry. And I mean, who is there anyone who's going to survive in the airline industry? I don't.
Maybe in
You know,
Canada, we're almost like a socialized airline here. It's like a
yeah.
weird government private mismangle of fucking entities.
Well, I know companies like WestJet are in big trouble. I know, so I don't know, like, so I don't know about Air Canada, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, again, it could be that that things do to turn. But what I do know is that things have to turn around very, very quickly. Otherwise, the downstream effects are going to be too much, right? I mean, it all comes down to, like, there's these breaking points, right? It's like, and they're for individuals, right? Like think about it, like everyone watching, like how much money do you have in savings? Like how long could you go without working before you're fucked, right?
Yeah.
Before you can't make your car payment, before you can't make your rent, and then what happens when you hit that point, right? Up to that point, you're like, okay, it sucks, it sucks, it sucks. But when you hit that breaking point where you no longer can afford your car payment and your rent, and all these things, then all of a sudden you drop off a cliff. Like your life goes from bad to really, really bad, because now if you can't afford your car, even if you could get another job, you can't get to work now, and like you have all these downstream effects. So that's just you personally. If you think about businesses and the economy and all of these things, that's that same thing. So maybe we're not at that point yet, but we're skating right up against that, and that's the thing that worries me, is that if we don't completely turn around very, very quickly, we're going to hit that inevitable point where we're going to hit a downturn.
Well, have you seen what
Yeah.
Trump said yesterday? I had Vin Armani on the show yesterday. We were talking about UBI, and they're literally talking about
Oh yeah,
helicoptering money onto people.
it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know if, like, it's interesting though. Like, I was thinking about that. My first reaction is no, but then I think, I've been actually someone who's been in support of UBI, of some form of UBI, simply because even though in principle I don't like the idea of giving people shit for nothing, I do like the idea of making it so that the kind of the mass lower segment of people doesn't bring down the middle and upper class, right?
Well, they're
Because
doing it wrong. They're doing it wrong. One,
yeah,
UBI comes with conditions. There's no free lunch. People are
right,
retarded. If they think there's a free lunch, they actually have no idea what they're talking about. Number two, I don't know why the government doesn't do what Milton Friedman did, which is negative income tax credit, or you can call it credits in general. It's not on the
exactly,
balance sheet. You don't have to print money. There's not quantitative easing. It's an IOU slip that you can fucking apply to anything you want, and you can have it tomorrow.
yeah,
And they're not
yeah.
doing that, which makes me think, I'm like, you're doing the worst thing possible as opposed to the easiest, most efficient thing. So what the fuck's going on?
Well, a lot of people aren't paying taxes, right? Or their tax burden is zero, so they can't utilize that. And then in addition, I mean, for guys like me and you, or reasonable people, it makes sense. But I think for
But they
the
can utilize it. They can take that tax credit
uh,
and utilize it towards their rent. The owner, the landlord, can use that against his or her tax situation.
so you're saying you could transfer this to someone else?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. If you could transfer it to someone
It's an
else, then it would
IOU.
make
You can
sense.
transfer. You
Yeah,
can do whatever you want. Instead of cash, as in like, hey,
yeah,
John, here's 2K cash.
right.
You have an IOU credit, a credit that represents the dollar that can be put towards anything you want. So let's say you're paying rent, you're the owner of the house, that person can't pay you physical cash, that person can give you the 2000 IU, then you can redeem that against your tax credits.
Ah,
If you
okay.
own tax, just put that towards that so you get less tax.
Yeah, that sounds like a reasonable
And
solution to
Milton,
the
he was talking
problem.
about this in the 70s or 80s,
Yeah.
whenever.
But yeah, there's a lot of crazy talk. I mean, I just heard something today about them possibly, like, opening the prisons up.
They did
Because
that in Iran. They let out 20,000 people.
if you can't quarantine people in a fucking prison, I don't know, like, it doesn't make any sense
Maybe
to me.
there's one silver lining to this for when it comes to prisons. Like 80% of people in prisons are non-violent crimes and they're drug
Yeah,
offenses. So it's either like The third strike law, I think that Bill Clinton put in, which is like the most draconian fucking law ever, is like, oh, you got caught 3 times or fucking coke, you're in jail for life. What the fuck? You know what I mean? And it costs us taxpayers some like ridiculous amount, like $20K a year to keep a prisoner, and they make $400 a day off a prisoner. And plus their stock is getting hammered right now. So fuck the private prisons. And so hopefully at least this silver lining, like, hey, you're a non-violent offender. You've never hurt anybody in your life. You're probably just a drug addict or you've sold drugs. We know for a fact where that's going. Most drugs are going to be legalized and classified and run by pharmacies, which is much better.
Yeah.
Out. Like, back out. Like, we shouldn't be jailing you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So yeah, especially in terms of I guess I'd wonder about some of those. Like, do people go to prison as nonviolent offenders and then come out worse? Right, like,
Listen, prison hardens you, but if you're nonviolent, depends. You got like minimum, you got max, you got different levels of prison. Different states, the time that, the length of your sentence matters as well. There's no question, like prison, your environment molds you. It's the issue that we have with prisoners that repeat is the fact that it's impossible to get a job. And like, what are you supposed to do? Like, I can't get hired. How the fuck am I going to supply or provide for my family? I can't get a job. What do you think I'm going to fucking do?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Right.
Like, you got to do
you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting though too. I think maybe one good thing that will come out of this is that I think a lot of companies are figuring out now that they don't need offices.
Yeah. I did that a year ago, man. I went remote 100%.
Yeah. And a lot of schools are figuring out that they can do remote schooling, right? As well. So that could be a big benefit, right? I mean, efficiency, right? A lot of companies can be a lot more efficient. School, educated. There's no question though that the world has fundamentally changed, just like it changed after September 11th, after this event, right? Things are going to be different from here on out, right?
And hopefully, my hope is like people realize is like, don't trust your government. Like, the government's job is to protect private property rights, and that's it. Have a national defense that we care about to protect our borders in case somebody invades, and protect our sovereign right as individuals to practice what we believe in, to practice freedom of speech, practice freedom of religion, and everything else fuck off. And then we should go back into more intentional small communities where we control our own food supply. Everything is, as much as we can, renewable energies. We know each other. Like, the thing that people understand is like, we as a human species right now have so much deviated from our tribal ancestors. The fact that we have to rely on the government has replaced community and has now become the head of the household. The government tells you if you can see your kids. The government decides what happens in divorce. The government decides, if you're going to get money or not. The government decides everything for you. We used to rely on community. There's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And it's true. The whole idea of a nuclear family, like a mother and a father and a kid can do everything by themselves, is idiotic. Absolutely idiotic. Right, we need a community, and this is our safety net. The community is our safety net. Like, my mom grew up in a very small village back in former Yugoslavia. Everybody knew everybody. They don't have to worry about babysitters. They don't have to worry about none of that shit. All the kids went to everyone else's houses. Everyone shared food. It's almost like one extended family.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is where, but it's not what we're saying going back to the Amish. I'm not saying no technology.
No.
I'm saying we can merge both worlds. We can be like a Jetson, have Jetson level tech. Right. But in a sustainable, like, small community that everyone knows everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. It harkens back to the idea of the anti-fragile that Taleb was talking about having systems like he uses Switzerland as an example.
Yeah, the cantons.
Yeah, because it creates that actual. It creates more security, right? It reduces fragility by having. Small levels of fragility, but a lot of it, the repetition of that. And that's, we're seeing now, like, I mean, globalism was preach, and now we're seeing why, again, I wouldn't exactly label myself as an isolationist, but I don't know. Now you're kind of like, now it's like, oh, okay, I can kind of see that, right? Because it's kind of like what you're saying. That's just like, sometimes I think people ask, like, why do we have separate countries? Why don't we just have a one world government and just have, right? And this is the answer, right? At least we have at least in the US we can close our borders, right? Like at least we can do something, right, at this level, or even at state level. Like having that, the not globalist view is important. And we saw now, right, the dependence on China is real. Imagine what would happen if China didn't get a hold of this. It seems like China has kind of gotten this under control, but imagine if they didn't. We'd be even more fucked than and it still may come raging back. I mean, this is something that until there's vaccines, until this gets really handled. So I do have to wonder though, with everything going on, I don't like to like be a super conspiracy theory person, but the timing of all this is quite interesting. And
all the Chinese problem with the protests in Hong Kong and all that stuff. Where's that at now?
Yeah. And elections coming up here, and it looked like we were about to nail the last nail into the coffin of socialism. And then, oh, look, like I'm not dead yet. Socialism just popped up as, I mean, we're accepting, like right now, we are accepting socialist policies, right?
Well, socialism works. It works for the super, what's it called? Corporatocracy. So basically, all the QE, all the money printing is fucking socialism. Yeah, you and I. So all the liabilities and negativities are pushed down to us.
Right.
But the people on the top get fucking bailed out by the Fed. Like, no, don't worry. We got money for you. Here you go. Buy all the stocks you want and do whatever you want. I'm like, corporatocracy. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting just to look at the timing of this and the fact that like now all of a sudden, right, capitalism is just getting killed right now, right? Because of what's happening, right? People are like, and this is what happens, right? And this is like, I mean, if you really wanted to take over the world and create a socialist, structure, this is precisely what you would do: is completely destroy the markets, make people afraid to leave their houses, to the point where they're like, please, government, just whatever you say, we'll do. Just give us, give us our bread and our safety and our toilet paper. And we'll do whatever.
I don't understand where this mentality comes from, and maybe it's just North American, but my parents, they didn't trust the government at all for anything, and we grew up in the Yugoslavia as a socialist, communistic fucking country. No one trusted the government at all.
Yeah,
like we can take care of ourselves. We don't need you.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, but people are like, they're not even batting an eye at giving up the freedom. I mean, we were talking about the quarantine, and I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, I'm training for a 100-mile race, and for my marathon.
When's that happening?
Well, the marathon got canceled. It was this weekend, so I'm going to run it solo this weekend. But
cool.
They're like talking about, well, what if you get quarantined to the house like they did? And so I was like, they have to fucking shoot me, because I'm gonna run.
No, you just get a blow up doll. You're gonna get a blow up doll. They see you in the window. You know what I mean?
but I'm dead serious. Like, I will not be quarantined to my house. Like, I'll go and run. I won't go out in public and to restaurants. That's fine. Like, that's just reasonable. But yeah, no, you have to kill me to keep me in my house. Like, that's the price. Like, I have a line where like freedom, and you know what? That's the line. That's it. Yeah. Like, and if we all draw the line there, then we limit the power. But
I actually think United States will turn around and become like that, the ethos of like a United States, liberty, land of the free. There's a really good book I just read. I highly recommend everybody. It's called Disunited Nations: The Scramble for Power in an Ungoverned World by Peter Zeihan, Zeihn. He's like a really, really fucking good book. So Disunited Nations, and his specialty is geopolitics. He has an amazing fucking episode with Dimitri in the podcast. What's it called? Hidden Forces. Really, really good episode. And basically, he states like United States is in the best position of any country on the planet. We have our own food supply. We're producing more oil than Saudi Arabia. We have the strongest Navy by 100 years. Like, nobody even comes fucking close to the Navy of the United. Like, one super, what are they called? Like those super freighters, like Nisbets or whatever they're called. Like, that one super ship can destroy majority of the navies in the world. Like, just one ship, and we got dozens of these ships. And so we are in the position, if people decide, I think what will bring United States together, maybe this is the silver lining too, is the camaraderie, getting communities back together, realizing we can work together as opposed to fighting each other. All this bullshit left and right, like come together, let's rebuild the economy as a united front, as opposed to all this division that we've been seeing in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is a positive, and that's what we need to do, right? Is to be able to do that, because the divisiveness has become to a level where it's become ridiculous, right? It's become lunacy. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think some good things can come out of this. Like I said, we've been living in a fragile system right now, and stability. We need a reset like this. We need to realize that Mother Nature can wipe us out too, right?
Mother Nature has no mercy, man. Yeah. She's a fucking
and this isn't even bad, right? Like, I mean, this is like, in terms of what could happen with a virus or an epidemic, right? This is like probably the mildest thing that could actually make it to an epidemic stage, that you would actually have a threat, right? I mean, because at a even if it's at a 3 or 4% death rate, which is nothing to sneeze at, but shit, I mean, there's a lot more worse things than that out there potentially. So, but I think some of the things that I think about with this whole thing is like, and I have to tell myself the story, right? Because I just lost a whole bunch of cash, right?
Yep.
It's not fun.
Not fun at all, man.
Believe me, I don't care how much money you have. Like, it's not fun. And my
outlook, I'm looking at my crypto portfolio right now. I'm like, fuck me, man.
I know, right? And but what I look at, and the outlook doesn't look good. But what I'm thinking about is, what, this, like, how I handle this, it's going to make me tougher. It's going to make me stronger, right? Like, it's going to expose the fragilities in my own thinking and my own system, right? I'm already, like, I have a list of notes I'm making of, like, things, of mistakes that I've made, that this is pointing out in the way that I'm living my life, right? So one of them was like, one of the biggest mistakes I made was, I remember, and then this is kind of funny, maybe some people will relate, like, you watch some people on the news or something, or you see some clip and you see them all scrambling to buy toilet paper, right? Right. And you're laughing, and you see people at Walmart and you're like, what, these fucking idiots, what the fuck, right? Why are they buying, like, you know what I mean? And then, you're laughing and you go to the bathroom and you're like, oh, I wonder how much toilet paper I have. And you're like, oh, okay, like enough for a month. And then you start to think, and you're like, wait a minute. So if all these people are buying all the toilet paper, in a month from now, when I need it, will I be able to buy it? Like, I'll just go to the store tomorrow and just pick up some just in case. So you get to the store and you're like, oh shit, there's no toilet paper at Target. That's all right, I'll just go to Walmart. And you get to Walmart and there's no toilet paper, and you're like, fuck. Then you start to sweat a little bit, and you're like, oh shit. And you become one of those freaking idiots that, like, so it's like, the biggest lesson I learned from that was, it doesn't matter if, like, you can be smart and other people can be idiots and like not overreact to something. But what you have to react to, or not react to, but what you have to be prepared for is the overreactions of other people, because that's going to take you down. Whether or not, if you were smart and you said it's stupid to go buy toilet paper, that's fine. That would be actually, the smart move if you didn't have other players in the game. But because you have other players in the game and they're all panicking, you're getting fucked by not buying the toilet paper, right? So it creates that dynamic. So what is the solution to that problem? Well, what I put in my notes is, I was like, all right, after this shit is all over, I'm going to have a bunch of, in my garage, I'm just going to have a bunch of MREs and a bunch of toilet paper, right? And whatever bare necessities, like, that I just have all the time, that's good for these kind of scenarios. Not being a crazy, ridiculous prepper, but just enough, because I know that even in a light situation, which it was light when that was happening, that other people will panic and freak out, right? And so I'm adopting a lot of my strategies now in life to not look at, like, what is the smartest thing for me to do in response to the level one thing that I see. It's how do I respond to how other people are going to respond, and how can I preemptively be prepared? So even the same thing with the market, right? A note went in there, was like, okay, normally when stupid shit happens, you should hold on to your positions and
Yep.
in whatever, and and buy into those dips. But when it looks like it might be something like a pandemic, that's a different rule. At
Yep.
that point, you should get out completely of the market, because your upside is maybe 10%, but your downside is negative 50. So those are situations that I wasn't prepared for, that now I will be prepared for. I'll put that in my playbook. So I think there's a lot of lessons that we can just like learn from the mistakes that we've made along these lines, right? I mean, if we would have saw this coming, right? Anyone who isn't sitting on millions of dollars right now that they just made from the market didn't see this coming, right? Because there's a few people that shorted the shit out of the market, shorted airline stocks, and they're doing great right now. But for all the rest of us, we made some mistakes.
Yeah. And so the moral of the story right now, you're just sitting on cash and some Bitcoin, and that's it for now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to buy more Bitcoin because it's so low. But here's another thing that happened, right? And I'd actually like to get your take on it, because I hadn't heard on it. This was a kind of in my mind, right? I read recently the Bitcoin Standard. I thought that was a really good book. That's
safe. Yeah.
That's what convinced me to buy Bitcoin at the 10,000 mark, because I wasn't messing with Bitcoin until I read that book, and then I said, that's right, it's a store of value. That was the thing, like, because I said, as a store of value, it makes sense. Stock to flow ratios, this whole thing makes sense. But then we just had a test, right? And in my opinion, Bitcoin failed the test, because it wasn't supposed to correlate with the market. Because if it was, a value store, and I think in the long term it still is a store of value, but I think in the short term it's not being viewed as that. And so right now it failed that test, because when the stock market dropped, and it dropped harder. And so if people were really treating it as a store of value, it should have went up, or it should have held its value. But I didn't hear your opinion on it, so
the store of value is a narrative that it's quite new to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been around 11 years. And during black swan events like this, the number one thing is liquidity and cash. So there's no price discovery on any assets. Even gold, the king of store of value, took a massive fucking plunge. And silver,
Right.
all of the precious metals took a dip. And what's interesting, though, what people forget is the stock market has breakers. They can stop short sellers. The breakers go down. I think it's like once it drops 8% quickly. Turkey the other day made it illegal to do short selling on the stock exchange over there. Bitcoin has no breakers. Bitcoin is an open 24/7 free market that is censorship resistant, and every 10 minutes a block is mined.
Right.
That being said, so you have to take this into realization. So it dropped about 48% within 24 hours. It rebounded a little bit. I think it's going to take a while. And so it's shaking out the weak people that need a liquidity. No matter which asset class you're in, people need a liquidity. I need cash, I need cash, I need cash. And a lot of these people forget, a lot of these people that cash out of Bitcoin, they made a fucking killing already. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. They'd quadruple X, like they made a killing. So they're liquidating their positions. You are quite correct, where if we elongate the time frame, eventually people will see that Bitcoin is a brand new emergent asset class. I don't like it. I don't like to call it a store of value. I just call it an asset class. I don't think so. We're quite there yet as a store of value, but the initial properties are there. There's no quantitative easing. We know exactly every 10 minutes a block is mined. We know roughly how many Bitcoins are left. We know how many Bitcoins are lost. Right. We know for a fact that there's no circuit breakers, that the market is 24/7. Bitcoin doesn't shut down. So and censorship resistance was the most important. Like, there is no government. I can have my little ledger or my seed phrase on my piece of paper that I can take with me anywhere in the world that I want. This gives it such immense power. And so eventually, where yield is king, where people are trying to trust another asset class, where it's like, wait a second, why would I buy stocks now? I think the fade in stocks is going to take a very long time, and maybe the way the stocks are done are going to change. Maybe we're going to go into more asset back stocks as opposed to paper stocks, where it's all negative EBITDA. There's nothing there. It's it's the emperor with no clothes. And so hedge funds, what's it called? Sovereign wealth funds, nation funds. They're looking for yield. Like, wait a second, I can't get yield in the bank now. It's zero. The Fed is 0% interest rates. Government bonds are like I'm not getting nothing. A couple of bips, if that.
Yeah.
Wait a second, there's this Bitcoin thing. And so I think honest to God, man, 3 years from now, I would not be surprised Bitcoin is 100,000. I would
I
not. I would
oh
not
yeah.
be surprised.
That's what I'm counting. I mean, that's why I'm not even thinking about selling the Bitcoin. That's why I'm thinking about buying more, is because of those
And the
properties.
halving's coming up in like a month and a half, so it's going to reduce the supply of Bitcoin even more.
The question though, I mean, I think there's still a failure point, which is okay. So with the price being so low of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So these miners now,
Yeah.
that the electricity costs more than the reward for mining a Bitcoin. How long can they?
So this is the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, that Satoshi, either they, them, her, whatever.
Okay.
There's something called the difficulty bomb,
Mm-hmm.
where if less miners are in, so basically works on an equation where depending on how much hash power is there, how many miners, vis-a-vis the price, the difficulty to achieve a reward of a Bitcoin changes.
I
This
see.
is
I
the
wasn't
most
aware of that.
ingenious fucking thing ever.
Okay.
So more competition and more miners makes it more difficult.
Okay.
So then
Okay.
it's true free market. If it's more difficult, wait a second, I gotta get cheaper electricity. I gotta buy the ASICs for a little bit cheaper. I have to have better software. Everything has to be optimized to the nth degree.
Right.
Now, let's say you lose 50% of the hash power all of a sudden overnight, it's gone.
Right.
And the network slows down to a halt. The difficulty changes to reward the current miners much more. And then the
Okay.
other miners like, oh shit. Now that guy's, instead of just numbers on my ass, instead of him earning 1 Bitcoin per block, he's earning 2 Bitcoins per block. And
Right.
then
Okay.
then more miners come back like, oh, time to change the difficulty. More
Yeah.
miners are here. And so it's the most ingenious thing fucking possible.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So that will create the incentive. So the incentive will never drop off of the cliff. The only weakness then is a small period of vulnerability if the network is reduced to such a, so there's a great reduction of nodes during that time. There would be a small vulnerability window, but that would
Yes and
only
no. Like Bitcoin isn't just miners, right? You have economic nodes, you have relayer nodes, you have different Bitcoin client. Like for a 51% attack to fully work, that means every single person on every single level of Bitcoin. So
Oh, I
the
see.
the
Okay.
GitHub repository admins would have to accept the clients. All the miners would do different clients. So there is a hierarchical kind of game theoretical model in Bitcoin when it comes to 51% attack. It's not simply I have money, I can attack you.
Okay, so it doesn't really make sense. So, like, if the price suffers, like some people are like, oh, Bitcoin's going to go to $1,000. If it goes down to 1,000, then the difficulty will decrease to the point where,
Automatically, and it rewards the
okay,
miners a necessary reward,
I see.
necessary to
So
keep
then
on
it gets
mining.
to the point where me on my home computer again starts to say, well,
Hey,
well, shit, I could do it
you never
now.
know. Yeah.
I see, and then
Yeah.
but then quickly that would disappear as But
Oh,
okay,
this is why it happened. Like you started off
right,
with GPUs,
right.
and then you had the ASICs come in, and the GPUs disappeared.
Okay. So yeah, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better about the Bitcoin investment. I mean, the way I looked at it when I put the money into Bitcoin after I read that book, the Bitcoin Standard, is I said, okay, 50% chance that this $100,000 goes to zero, and
Yes.
50% chance that it goes to several $1,000,000. And I'm like the EV on that is extremely positive, right?
The
Because
asymmetrical returns are just ridiculous.
right, because the worst I can lose is $100,000.
Yes.
Right. So and it's capped. Like you can't go
But think
below
about it,
that.
this is literally one of
So
the only new assets that you know the end result. You know that there's only
right.
21 million.
Yeah.
And everything's transparent. You know exactly where the addresses are. You know roughly how many miners there are. You know the
Yeah.
difficulty bomb equation when that changes. You know everything, and it's open 24/7. There's no fucking circuit breakers.
Yeah.
Like I see a floodgate of fiat going into Bitcoin within the next year. I think
Yeah.
6 months, 8 months, we got to pass all this crazy shit. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin drop to like 3K, which is like
Yeah.
fucking buy as much as you can.
Yeah. I think if it gets to
And
that level, I'll be buying up. So.
yeah, it was 38. I think it was 39.50 on like on BitMEX during that crazy drop.
The reason why the like at that point, like I
Yeah.
know a lot of people were probably in the same situation I was. in the process of like trying to pull my money out of the place, right, out of the
But you
market,
couldn't,
right?
huh?
It's like you can't get it fast enough, right, to be able to buy into that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
And that's the thing.
yeah,
Like, look at the stock market dropping. Like right now, majority of the volume is OTC, over the counter,
yeah,
and people are buying, man. Like people
yeah,
are buying Bitcoin. This is the next asset class, and I think this is also the beginning and the dawn of a Web3 cryptocurrency ecosystem,
yeah,
where we can create digital scarcity, where we rely on cryptography, where digital identity is protected, where people
right,
can remain anonymous, whether that is through like Whisper, back in for Signal technology, the messaging app, whether, and I was talking with Vin yesterday, Bitcoin can have encryption in it, so we can do messaging on Bitcoin.
mm,
I think this is there's that funny saying from like Bane and Batman, you know, oh, you think darkness is your ally? I was I was born in darkness. Bitcoin was born in darkness. Bitcoin came out
yeah,
from 2008 financial crisis, and this is the first time we're seeing a black swan event. In fact, I'm actually quite impressed how Bitcoin was able to bounce back and manage all this, and how people because it's a narrative too. The only reason gold has value is narrative. People say, "Oh, jewelry."
exactly,
It's a fucking narrative, man. Let's be fucking honest. Whoopie do fucking jewelry. It's the
yeah.
narrative that we have a consensus that for the last fucking 10,000 years, the gold has value, and there's a limited supply of gold.
Well, yeah, I mean, because that stock to flow ratio, right? Because gold can only be mined at a certain rate,
Sure.
right?
But let's say a
And
meteorite comes down, like we go to meteorite, we're like, hey, that
yeah.
whole meteorite's fucking gold. And that one meteorite has this complete supply of the whole planet's worth of gold.
So the reason why I've never invested in gold and why I never will is because I feel that from a technological perspective, we are going to, within, I don't know, I'd say within 50 years, get to the point where we can synthesize things at a molecular level. And when we get to that point, right, we have 3D printers right now. Imagine a 3D printer that can print molecules. There's already some that can kind of do
We already
that.
have laboratory diamonds. It's
Yeah.
just marketing.
But
You know?
just imagine to the point where it becomes to the consumer grade where you can print whatever you
hmm
want and then you just
hmm
print gold. So
hmm
that's why I haven't, I've been
Well, gold's
not
been
buying
taking
gold.
a fucking beating. And
Yeah.
plus, it's not like you own the gold, you own a fucking receipt.
Well, unless you actually get the
Get the physical
real,
bullion and you put it in your safe.
right,
But
in
most people
Singapore.
are getting an
Yeah,
IOU certificate saying, "Hey, this represents your share of gold in some vault somewhere around the world."
exactly. Yeah.
Fucking Bitcoin, man, I have a piece of paper.
Yeah.
As long as
Yeah.
I have internet connection or even ham radio, they're sending Bitcoin through ham radios.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
can order these kits. I think they're on Amazon. I forget what they're called. Go things called like if you just Google like Go antenna Bitcoin, you'll find it.
Yeah.
John and I can do business with fucking ham radios
Yeah.
and transact value.
Yeah. 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 So what do you think? Here's the other thing that I'm kind of trying to piece together here is like businesses, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you seeing? Because I did a sale yesterday, right? I normally do a YouTube video for Bulldog Mindset. And when I do the YouTube video, like last month when I did it, I got like 60 to 70 new members in 2 days.
And this is for your membership
Yeah.
site. Yeah.
Yesterday when I did it, I got, I think, 3 new members and about 20 people who did not renew membership. Like
Yeah.
my membership actually went down. So are you seeing like a similar type of, I mean, do you think all of our online businesses are going to basically suffer?
Yeah, like for Block Geeks, we rely a lot on advertising on the back end. So we don't do ads like banner ads and all that shit, but we do custom content. So
Yeah,
we're an education content house, and we a lot of our pipeline just dried up, not canceled, but like,
yeah,
hey, we got to postpone this shit
exactly. Yeah,
until we
yeah,
figure things out. When it comes to businesses, I always like to, especially in times like this. So even though there's like a small euphoria right now of certain businesses like tech and all this other like Blue Apron, or is it Apron? That shitty fucking.
oh yes.
It's a joke. Like
That-
anyway,
yeah,
that's a small blip right now. It'll disappear. I like to look at Maslow hierarchy of needs. So the
yes,
non-essentials people don't care about. So it's like gym membership. I'm not paying $100 a gym. I can go fucking work out of my house, right?
right,
Certain things like all the stuff that is not necessary for the base minimum they will eliminate from their burn. And so then you got to ask, okay, what are the Maslow hierarchy of needs that people need? And so there's a lot of studies. I've actually done some due diligence on the psychology of items. Like any items under 1997, it's a no-brainer and people will buy it. So the question is like, where can you provide value? What problem can you solve that falls into that Maslow hierarchy of needs at the bottom, right? So is there something in the food world that you can do? Is there something in the can I make more money, or like can you help me get a job world? Is there something that you can help me save money, right, to reduce my burn? Cool. Is there something that you can let's say, I don't know, like that's pretty much it, like sex, wealth, and house and food, like
Yeah.
the base bone minimum of a human being. If you can figure out how to help people in this time, I think that business will take off. And the product has to be like under $20.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be under $20.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
the thing.
interesting.
You got to look around something like that. Is it an online thing? I wouldn't get into e-commerce right now unless you control the supply chain 100%. Like you control it in your fucking backyard. Like I would not touch. You see what Amazon did the other day? Like if you're
Oh yeah. Yeah.
only medical, no one else is being sold. I'm like,
What
whoa,
the fuck?
holy
What about
fuck.
a slap in the face to every single fucking entrepreneur who is supporting Amazon, and then they're like, ah, fuck all you guys. Yeah. Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like every single e-commerce, Amazon FBO store, they're
Yep.
just all fucked right now. Like
Yeah.
that's amazing. It's just like, yeah. But I mean, that's the fragility of having, like, to some degree you have a necessity for it, right? But you have to recognize what your fragility is, because if you're depending on someone else's platform or depending on someone else, and we all are to some degree, like you said, it takes a community to raise a child, right? Like we can't be totally in isolation, but we have to recognize what those weaknesses are. Even like, like YouTube, right? Like we're, at least, well, your business, probably your leads don't necessarily come from YouTube, but for a bulldog mindset, mine do. They could shut me down at any given time. And
Have you been noticing any changes in your YouTube traffic, or like?
Not really. YouTube's kind of friendly to me. Like I feel like they should demonetize my videos, but they don't. Because like every other word is fuck in my videos, and I'm talking about sex and getting laid and like all of these things, and I actually submit them for manual review, and then they come back and they're like, your video is suitable for all advertisers. Your video how to get laid, whatever, is suitable for all advertisers. I'm like, all right, cool. So I don't know. Someone's looking out for me in the YouTube space for now, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's tough times, man. That my recommendation for people is cut burn as much as you can, and reach out, talk. I think a lot of times when people get depressed, they go into turtle mode and they hermit, and I think that's the worst thing. Like reach out. Like there's people out there that can help you out. The community can come together. There's opportunity. At the end of the day, if we can help each other out, if you're going to lose your house, let's figure out, let's get a roof over your head. If you need food, we have more than enough fucking food, beyond enough food. Like we're gluttony of how much fucking food exists. So there's no excuse. There's no fucking food. That's just ridiculous. And so the more we can help each other out and come as a tribe and community together, we'll pull through this.
And I think, like I said, from a psychological perspective, I was just on the call with one of my friends who's an entrepreneur as well, and he was asking me how to handle this and what should he do and all these things. And I was basically telling him, like, the 2 years. I was like, here's what you can do. Like, just assume, like I said, that it's going to be winter for 2 years, that 75% of your sales are going to dry up, that you're basically going to be operating on 25%, and that you're going to have to take $100,000 from your bank account and invest it in your business in order to survive for 2 years, right? Just like have that mindset from the go, and then try to cut the expenses and try to do reasonable things, but then try to set yourself up so you'll be in the best possible position you can be 2 years from now. Don't think that you're going to salvage it now. Just survive and just plan on taking a loss, and just plan on just like, on investing your own personal money into your business to survive during this time. And I said, then you continue doing the smart things in business, right? You continue growing your content, growing your traffic, right? Maybe your sales are going to suck, and don't fight against the stream, right? And let's do that. And then what also happens is that every month when you have a big fucking hit and you're like, oh shit, I'm running red, you don't freak out and you don't get depressed, and like, because you already have accepted this in your head that 2 years I'm going through winter. It's going to suck. I'm going to do this, but I'm already planning on investing money into the business. And that's the plan, because surviving means that I'll be a king, at the end of this. And I think that's the key, is like, if we mentally prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario and already accept it. Like for me, I've prepared. I'm like, okay, business is probably going to go to shit. Maybe I'll have to move out of California and like get a cheap house for a while. Like even with from the
Bro,
I'm in a pretty good financial position.
You're not married. You don't have kids, right?
I've got. I don't like to talk about the
all right. That's
because people
yeah.
like send me death rates and shit. But
well, fuck them then.
yeah, I know. Yeah, like, and then because I say a lot of stuff. So, but anyway, like I'm just prepared for that, right? I'm prepared for that scenario. I've already established in my mind, okay, what happens if I lose renters, if lose commercial property, like all those things. Like the name of the game is survival. And so I think if you have that mindset, then all of these things won't hurt you so much, right? But if you're sitting there right now and you got your money in the market and you're like, I really hope that it goes up and it recovers, and every day you're watching the Dow go down 1,000 points, you're gonna you're not gonna do anything. You're not gonna be working on your business. You're just gonna be crying all the time, and you're gonna be depressed. You're not gonna work out. You're gonna get fat. You're gonna eat all your quarantine food. Right. Right. Like all these bad things are going to happen because it's all about the mindset. But if your mindset is already, look, the shit's going to suck. I'm going to lose this much money every month. This shit, I'm probably going to lose my job or whatever. And you've already planned that out. And you're like, I'm going to start tightening the belt now. I'm going to make sure that I'm in shape. I'm going to keep, this thing might last. I might be under quarantine for 10 months. If I'm under quarantine for 10 months, I'm going to need to start a workout plan and start working out from home. Like all of these smart things, if you've planned out ahead of time, you're going to be okay and you're going to be able to handle it. But if you're living day by day, hoping things are going to get better, you're going to live a nightmare every single fucking day. So
cool. I think we'll leave it at that, man. That's a great ending, man. John, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for sharing your story and thank you for giving insights. If people want to get a hold of you, they want to know about Bulldog Mindset, what's the best resource?
Just go to bulldogmindset.com and take the Bulldog quiz. Actually, it's a good time to take the quiz now to figure out if you're a Bulldog. If you get a low score on that, then maybe you need some help to develop the stoic mindset to like get through this shit. Because like I said, I mean, I took some major hits, but I'm here every day. I don't care. I'm fucking doing everything I'm still doing. It doesn't matter. I'll take the hits. I already and that's the kind of mindset that you gotta have in order to like survive this kind of shit. So.
Awesome. Thanks, John.